You know, when I'm writing, whether it's an article or a book, I really want to make the experience of reading it as vivid as possible. I'm trying to pull you into a scene and really see it as a scene. I want you to know how things look, how they smell, how they sound. I want you to feel as though you're in the room with these people. There's a huge amount of research that goes into gathering a kind of density of detail where I can construct these scenes so you feel like you're really there. What was fascinating for me about the experience of having Say Nothing adapted into a limited series is that you're taking that concept and you're actually dramatizing. So these are real scenes that I've described. I've had to kind of pull together all this different research, interviewing dozens of people and looking at old records and kind of eking out these little details to build a scene on a page. And then there's the experience of seeing that put together by a screenwriter and a director, and you have a cast, and in some cases, they've actually sort of rebuilt these locations to reconstruct these places that in some instances I'd been to, and in some instances they're places that are gone, and so I just had to kind of imagine them. So one of the opening scenes in the book is the abduction of this woman named Jean McConville. Her husband had died the year earlier. This is in 1972. She was living in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and she had 10 kids. And she lived in this housing project, this famous kind of notorious housing project called Divis Flats in West Belfast. And one night there was a knock on the door. One of the kids went to open the door. This is in December 1972. And a gang of intruders entered the apartment. They were masked. Some of them had guns. There were men and women. Nobody knows exactly how many people there were. The kids have different memories. Some thought it was about 8. Some thought it was as many as 12. And they basically abducted Jean McConville. So her children were clinging to her legs. They said, "We need to take your mother away. We need to talk to her. We'll bring her back in a few hours." But they never did. Jean McConville disappeared and her kids never saw her again. And that's kind of the mystery that sets Say Nothing, the book, in motion. What happened to this woman? Why was she taken away? For me, writing that scene was immensely important because it's kind of the moment that opens up the book. But filming the scene is another thing altogether. To sit there in a space that was very, very carefully constructed. We'd found, that housing project had actually been torn down, but we found another housing project that's still standing in Sheffield in England that was built in very much the same kind of idiom. It was eerie, the extent to which it looked like Divis Flats. And then we constructed an interior on a backlot. So you're actually cutting fluidly between an exterior, which is a real building in Sheffield, and then this interior where we reconstructed the apartment of this family, the McConville family. And then having a really incredible actress, this woman, Judith Roddy, playing Jean McConville, and these child actors experiencing this sort of heartbreaking moment where their mother is pulled away from her and they're screaming and they don't want her to leave. There was a kind of vividness that, try as I might, it goes beyond what I can do on the page. And I was actually there while we filmed the scene through the course of a day. And it was an amazing thing because we were all standing there at a monitor, actually outside the room itself. And Judith Roddy was delivering this incredible performance as Jean McConville. And at the end of each take, you'd look around the monitor and everybody was in tears. We were all just kind of feeling it in this incredibly visceral way. And then the funny thing about the whole process of making a film or a television show is then we'd do it again. And again, we'd all end up in tears. And it was that really through the course of a day. So it was a scene I was really nervous about because I think it could easily tip into sensationalism or feel too kind of garish or amped up, too much like a horror movie, when in fact, this is a true story. This is something that really happened. So you need to kind of calibrate that just right. But I was really wonderfully satisfied with the results, and I think it's an incredible way to start the series.